The 52nd floor of Ethan Miller's penthouse makes the San Francisco skyline look like a circuit board, all blinking lights and connecting lines, beautiful in its cold precision. It's the kind of view that reminds you how small you are, how dispensable. Miller stands with his back to it all, his reflection ghosting against the floor-to-ceiling windows as he swipes through blockchain transactions on a tablet worth more than my monthly rent. His fingers are steady, but there's a tremor in his voice that money can't hide. "Look at these transfers," he says, sliding the tablet across a glass coffee table that probably costs more than my car. "Every Thursday for the past 6 months. Small amounts, different wallets. Careful, but not careful enough." I take the tablet, scrolling through the logs. I'm not a tech guy, but I've picked up enough over the years to follow digital breadcrumbs. Ethan Miller made his fortune in crypto, one of those early Bitcoin evangelists who actually cashed out at the right time. Now he thinks his wife is planning to cash him out. "These could be legitimate investments," I say, playing devil's advocate. "Your wife works in the industry too, right?" Miller's mouth twitches, not quite a smile, more like a wince with ambition. "Julia doesn't hide her investments from me. We have joint accounts, shared portfolios." He takes the tablet back, taps a few times, and shows me a map with blinking dots. "Singapore, Hong Kong, Jakarta, 3 trips in the last 2 months. She said they were conferences, workshops, and they weren't? The conferences existed. She attended exactly 1 session at each, then disappeared. I lean back on his designer couch, feeling the leather yield beneath me. My jacket is worn at the elbows and my shoes have seen better days. I don't belong in places like this, but that's the point. People like Ethan Miller don't hire people like themselves to dig through dirt. "Mr. Miller!" Ethan, what exactly do you think your wife is doing?" He doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he walks to a minimalist bar setup and pours amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. The ice cracks as he drops it in, like tiny bones breaking. "I think she's planning to leave me," he says, handing me a glass. "But not before she empties our accounts. I built a security system to protect my assets, but lately there have been attempts to access certain wallets, sophisticated ones." I take a sip. The whiskey is smooth, expensive, the kind that doesn't burn, but somehow makes you more aware of all your other pains. You have prenups, I assume? Ironclad. But crypto exists in gray areas. If certain assets disappear into anonymous wallets. He lets the sentence hang, taking a long swallow from his glass. I've seen this before. Different settings, different stakes, but the same story. Wealthy man, younger wife, trust eroding like shoreline in a storm. Usually I catch them in hotel rooms, document the affair, collect my fee, and walk away before the real damage begins. This is different. Higher stakes, longer fall. The memory rises unbidden. Lieutenant Reyes's face as she tossed my badge onto her desk. "You crossed a line, Hunt." "The commissioner's son-in-law? What were you thinking?" I wasn't thinking. I was following evidence, doing my job. Turned out some jobs weren't meant to be done. My hands go numb around the crystal glass, but I feel that familiar warmth in my chest, the uncomfortable heat of old guilt and new desperation. 3 months behind on rent, car payment overdue, and my last client still haggling over the invoice. "I specialize in domestic cases, Mr. Miller. Infidelity, mostly. Following your wife across Asia is 50,000 now, 50 when you bring me proof." Miller cuts me off, setting his empty glass down with a soft click. "Plus expenses. First-class flights, 5-star hotels, whatever you need." I try not to let my surprise show on my face. "That's more money than I've seen in a year. Enough to clear my debts, fix my leaking roof, maybe even put something away for when my knees finally give out and I can't tail cheating spouses anymore. You said there've been attempts to access your accounts. You think Julia has help? Miller nods, walking back to his wall of windows. The city lights outline his profile, sharp, determined, maybe a little afraid. Singapore's crypto scene is close-knit. If she's meeting with someone, they'll be connected. I need names, dates, recordings, if possible. And if she's not doing anything wrong, if this is just business? He turns to look at me directly for the first time. His eyes are tired but clear. Then I'll pay you the same amount to never contact me again, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to her. I finish my whiskey and set the glass down. I'll need details, her schedule, contacts, habits, photos of anyone she mentions frequently. Miller nods, slides a thumb drive across the table. It's all there. Flight leaves tomorrow at 10 a.m. Your ticket's been arranged. I pocket the drive, feeling its weight. Heavier than the small piece of plastic has any right to be. One more thing, I say, standing. How did you find me? I'm not exactly in the yellow pages. A flicker of something, amusement maybe, crosses Miller's face. You exposed Commissioner Blake's son-in-law 3 years ago. The embezzlement case that got you fired. Forced resignation, I correct automatically. Whatever they called it, you found the truth when no one wanted it found. That's what I need now. I look out at the city below, all those tiny lights like lives I'll never touch. Then I look back at Miller, another rich man with problems that would seem luxurious to most. But betrayal hurts the same, no matter the tax bracket. I'll call you when I land in Singapore, I say, and we shake hands, his grip firm, confident, betraying none of the desperation in his voice earlier. Money doesn't just talk. It wears a convincing mask. As the elevator descends 52 floors, I flip the thumb drive between my fingers and wonder which of us is being played. Miller, his wife, or me. Probably all three. That's how these games usually go. But the money's real, and that's enough for now. Asia awaits, with all its neon promises and rain-slicked deceptions. I've never been good at saying no to either. Singapore greets me with a wall of humid air that clings like a forgotten debt. Rain slicks the tarmac, turning airport lights into watery smears as I drag my jet-lagged body into a taxi. 40 hours since I left San Francisco, and I'm running on convenience store coffee and professional paranoia. The driver asks no questions as I give him an address in the business district, just nods and pulls into traffic that moves with efficient precision. Everything in this city does, I'm told. Perfect place to hide in plain sight if your name is Julia Miller and you're playing a game your husband hasn't figured out yet. My local contact waits in the lobby of a gleaming tower that cuts through the rain-heavy sky like an accusation. He's a former Hong Kong detective who now consults for people who need information without paperwork. His name isn't important. In this business, what matters is reliability, not friendship. Mrs. Miller checked into the Marina Bay at noon, he says, handing me a manila envelope. Schedule, security access card for the conference center, and a burner phone. My number's the only one programmed. I flip through the contents, studying the grainy surveillance photos of Julia Miller entering the hotel. She's striking in a calculated way. Designer sunglasses, hair pulled back tight, the confident stride of a woman who knows exactly where she's going and what she'll take when she gets there. Any sign of who she's meeting? My contact shakes his head. Not yet, but there's a reception tonight at the Altitude Bar. Rooftop, very exclusive. She's on the list. I slide him half his fee in an envelope, keep the rest for when I need more. I'll need clothes that won't scream American detective. 2 hours later, I'm wearing a charcoal suit that almost fits and standing in an elevator that smells of sandalwood and money. My reflection in the mirrored walls looks almost convincing. A businessman, perhaps, or a tech investor. The fake credentials my contact provided identify me as a blockchain security consultant. Close enough to the truth to be believable, far enough to avoid questions. The altitude bar sits 60 floors up, where the air thins and bank accounts fatten. I step out into a space designed to make even the wealthy feel special. Infinity pool merging with the skyline, glass walls that frame the city like an expensive painting, bartenders who move with the precision of surgeons. Rain taps against the glass ceiling, creating a watery soundtrack for the deal-making below. I spot Julia immediately. She sits at a corner table, legs crossed, finger tracing the rim of a martini glass. Her dress is midnight blue, cut to suggest rather than reveal. Across from her sits a man I recognize from Ethan's dossier, Vincent Zhang, financial consultant with connections throughout Asia's crypto world. His suit probably costs more than my car, and his smile suggests he's never had to worry about the price of either. I take a position at the bar, angled to watch without being obvious. The bartender slides me a whiskey I didn't order. "Compliments of the gentleman by the window," she says. I glance over to see my contact nodding slightly from a table across the room. He raises his glass, then returns to a conversation with two Japanese businessmen. Good to know I'm not the only one working tonight. I turn my attention back to Julia and Vincent. They lean toward each other, voices low beneath the ambient music. I activate the recording app on my phone and slide it partially beneath a cocktail napkin, adjusting my position to capture their conversation. The bar noise makes it difficult, but fragments float my way like debris after a shipwreck. "Legal structure is already in place," Vincent says, his accent crisp, educated. "Hong Kong recognizes the Cayman entity, but Singapore jurisdiction applies to the holdings." Julia smiles, predatory and precise. "And the trust mechanism? Untraceable after the second transfer. The beauty of blockchain. Absolute privacy with the right architecture. They speak the international language of money and deception, couched in technical terms and legal frameworks. I've heard similar conversations in divorce cases, but never with stakes this high. Ethan Miller's fortune isn't just being targeted, it's being systematically mapped for extraction. Vincent leans closer, his hand brushing Julia's in a way that suggests their partnership extends beyond business. The Indonesian connection is secure. Once the tokens move through their exchange, even the best forensic accountants couldn't follow the trail. Julia's laugh is practiced, musical enough to charm, controlled enough to hide. He still thinks I'm attending workshops on institutional investment strategies. She sips her martini, leaving a perfect lipstick crescent on the glass. Meanwhile, his security is focused on the wrong wallets entirely. I take a slow sip of whiskey, feeling the familiar buzz of confirmation. Ethan Miller isn't paranoid, he's just underestimating the sophistication of what's happening. This isn't an impulsive betrayal, it's a precision operation. Vincent checks his watch, thin, elegant, probably worth more than my annual income. The window closes in 3 weeks. After that, the regulatory changes make things complicated. I'll have access codes by then. Julia's confidence is absolute. He still keeps the master key on a secure drive in his office safe. Predictable. They fall silent as a waiter approaches with fresh drinks. I use the moment to snap several photos with a pen camera. Old school but effective. When the waiter leaves, their conversation shifts to topics that sound innocent to casual listeners. Market trends, conference speakers, a new restaurant in the Marina Bay complex. But their body language tells the real story. The slight touch of fingers when passing a drink. The mirrored posture. The way Vincent's eyes linger on Julia's neck when she turns to survey the room. They're lovers planning a heist, not colleagues discussing business. I continue my surveillance for another hour, gathering enough audio to piece together their general strategy. They plan to use a series of shell companies and crypto exchanges to move Ethan's assets through jurisdictions with weak financial oversight. Classic money laundering with a digital twist. As the evening winds down, Julia reaches into her purse, a small, elegant thing with no visible designer logo. Her movement is casual, practiced. She slides a folder across the table, and from it, Vincent extracts what looks like a regular business card. But I've been doing this long enough to recognize the sleight of hand beneath. The card is cover for a flash drive passed beneath it. Vincent pockets both smoothly, then stands and helps Julia with her chair. Perfect manners masking perfect deception. I capture the entire exchange on camera, feeling the familiar satisfaction of confirmation. Whatever's on that drive, it wasn't meant for Ethan Miller to see. They move toward the elevator, and I turn away, suddenly fascinated by the ice melting in my whiskey. In the reflection of the bar's mirrored backsplash, I watch them leave, Julia's hand resting lightly on Vincent's arm, his head bent slightly toward hers. The perfect picture of conspiracy. I wait 10 minutes before leaving, sending a brief text to my contact. Got it. Need hotel details for both targets. Outside, Singapore's perpetual rain has intensified, drumming against the canopies and turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon. I hail a taxi, sinking into the back seat with the weight of what I've witnessed. Somewhere in this gleaming city, Julia Miller and Vincent Zhang are planning their next move. Tomorrow, I'll be one step closer to understanding exactly what that is. For now, I have recordings to review and a very expensive whiskey to sleep off. The game is just beginning, and I'm still learning the rules. The Marina Bay Hotel lobby gleams with marble and quiet money. I've positioned myself in a leather armchair angled toward the elevators, nursing an overpriced coffee and pretending to read financial news on my tablet. Sleep evaded me last night. Jet lag and the recordings of Julia's conversation with Vincent Zhang kept me company until dawn. Now I'm running on caffeine and professional stubbornness, waiting for Julia Miller to emerge from the executive floor where she spent the night. Alone, according to my contact, which means Vincent is keeping his distance in public. Smart criminals always maintain plausible deniability. The lobby hums with the soft soundtrack of wealth, hushed conversations in multiple languages, the gentle click of designer heels on polished floors, staff moving with practiced invisibility. Singapore specializes in this brand of luxury, pristine, efficient, with all the messy human elements carefully managed out of sight. It's the perfect backdrop for what I'm about to do. Lie to a liar. At precisely 9:15, Julia emerges from the elevator. She wears a cream silk blouse and tailored charcoal pants, hair pulled back in a sleek knot that emphasizes her sharp cheekbones. She moves with the confident grace of someone who's never worried about her next meal or mortgage payment. I give her 30 seconds to check her phone, then time my approach to intersect her path to the concierge desk. "Excuse me," I say, feigning surprise as I nearly bump into her. "I'm sorry, but aren't you Julia Miller? From Cryptoverse Conference?" She looks up, a flicker of assessment crossing her face before her professional smile engages. "I am." "I'm sorry, have we met?" "Briefly. Yesterday's blockchain security panel." The lie comes easily. My contact confirmed she made a brief appearance there before meeting Vincent. "Riley Hunt. I'm consulting with Asia Block on vulnerability assessments. I offer my business card, a convincing fake provided by my contact." "Of course," she says, though we both know she doesn't remember me. Her handshake is firm, deliberate. "Were you speaking or just attending?" "Just observing." My client is considering implementing similar security protocols to what your husband's company uses. I watch her carefully as I mention Ethan, but her expression doesn't change. I understand he's pioneered some interesting approaches to cold storage. She smiles, perfect teeth, calculated warmth. Ethan is certainly innovative, but I'm afraid I don't discuss his proprietary systems, even at conferences. Professional discretion. I respect that. I gesture toward the hotel cafe. I was just about to grab breakfast. Would you join me? I'm actually hoping to connect with more Singapore-based firms while I'm here. A moment of calculation flashes behind her eyes, weighing risks, potential benefits, cover stories. I can spare 20 minutes before my next meeting. The cafe continues the hotel's aesthetic of understated opulence, fresh orchids on each table, servers who materialize exactly when needed and vanish when they don't. Julia orders green tea and nothing else. I go for coffee and toast, playing the role of the American who can't adapt to local breakfast options. "So, Mr. Hunt," she says once we're settled, "what brings you to Singapore?" "We don't see many American security consultants in this market." "Expanding horizons," I reply, spreading marmalade on toast I don't want. "Asian crypto exchanges are growing faster than regulation can keep up. Creates interesting security challenges. And opportunities," she adds, something knowing in her smile. "For those who understand the regulatory gaps." I lean forward slightly. "Exactly. In fact, I heard some interesting discussions about cross-jurisdiction transfers at last night's reception. The altitude bar?" Her expression doesn't change, but her fingers tighten almost imperceptibly around her teacup. "I stepped in briefly, mostly socializing, not much substance." "Really? I thought I saw you deep in conversation with—" I pretend to search my memory. "I spoke with several people," she cuts in smoothly. "Networking is half the reason for these conferences." "Of course." I take a deliberate sip of coffee. "I'm particularly interested in the Hong Kong-Singapore corridor. I understand there are some innovative structures being developed for asset protection." She sets down her cup with practiced precision. "If you're looking for insights into Asian markets, Mr. Hunt, you might want to attend the regulatory framework session this afternoon. Much more informative than lobby conversations with someone just here to support her husband's interests." The deflection is masterful, reinforcing her cover story while subtly suggesting I'm wasting my time. If I didn't have recordings of last night's conversation, I might almost believe her. "Fair enough," I concede. "Though from what I've heard, you're quite knowledgeable in your own right. Didn't you previously work with—" Her phone buzzes, interrupting my question. She glances at it and something changes in her eyes. A flash of triumph quickly masked. "Excuse me," she says, looking at the notification. "I need to take this." I nod, watching as she unlocks her phone. From my angle, I can see she's opened a crypto wallet app. A transaction confirmation flashes on the screen, numbers with too many zeros to be casual. Julia's lips curve into a slight smile as she swipes through several screens, checking balances. "Good news?" I ask casually. "Just business," she replies, but satisfaction radiates from her like heat. She tucks the phone away and checks her watch. "I'm afraid I need to cut this short, Mr. Hunt." "Of course. Thanks for your time." As she stands to leave, her assistant approaches, a young woman with an iPad and anxious efficiency. They exchange quick words, too low for me to hear. Julia nods, then turns back to me with a practiced smile. "It was nice meeting you. Enjoy the conference." "One more thing," I say, rising. "Is your husband joining you in Singapore? I'd love to connect with him directly about his security protocols." Something flickers across her face. Amusement, perhaps, or contempt. "Ethan prefers to stay in San Francisco," she says. "He's not one for travel these days." She turns to go, then pauses, looking back at me with an expression I can't quite read. "Just wait," she murmurs, more to herself than to me. He'll never see it coming. Then she's gone, striding across the marble lobby toward the hotel entrance where a black car already waits. Her assistant hurries behind, like a smaller boat caught in a larger one's wake. I remain at the table, turning my coffee cup slowly between my fingers. The recording app on my phone has captured our entire conversation. Not that she said anything explicitly incriminating. Julia Miller is too careful for that. But that final comment, paired with the crypto transaction I glimpsed, confirms what I suspected. This isn't just about an affair or simple embezzlement. Julia and Vincent aren't just planning to steal from Ethan, they're orchestrating something complex enough to require international movement of funds, regulatory workarounds, and careful timing. I signal for the check, mentally composing my update to Ethan. This job just got more complicated, but also more interesting. Whatever game Julia Miller is playing, it's high stakes enough to require elaborate preparation and powerful allies. And now I know for certain, she isn't running a con. She's running a heist. The kind that leaves its victims not just broke, but broken. I've seen it before, but never at this scale or with this level of calculation. I leave a tip that's more than the coffee deserves and head for the exit, already planning my next move. Julia Miller may think no one sees her coming, but she's wrong. The question now is whether seeing is enough to stop whatever she's set in motion. The humidity hits me like a wall as I step outside. Singapore continues its business around me, efficient, relentless, indifferent to the small dramas of betrayal playing out in its luxury hotels and hidden server rooms. Somewhere in this gleaming city, Julia Miller is moving digital millions like chess pieces, and I'm still trying to figure out if I'm a player or just another pawn. The air conditioning in Zhao and Associates Legal Services hums with mechanical precision, chilling the sweat under my cheap polyester shirt. The receptionist eyes me with the practiced disinterest of someone who sees 100 faceless paralegals a day, none of them worth remembering. Perfect. I adjust my fake glasses and ID badge, courtesy of my Hong Kong contact, and concentrate on becoming invisible. In my line of work, being forgettable is a professional asset. Today, it might just keep me alive. 12th floor, third door on the right, she says in Cantonese accented English, barely glancing up from her computer. Mr. Lee is expecting the financial disclosure files by 2. I nod and mumble thanks, clutching my borrowed briefcase like it contains actual legal documents instead of surveillance equipment and a sandwich I hadn't had time to eat after the morning flight from Singapore. The overnight research paid off. Vincent Zhang uses this firm for his more creative financial arrangements, and today they're preparing documents for whatever he and Julia Miller are planning. The elevator rises with a smooth, expensive whisper, nothing like the grinding death traps in the buildings where I usually work. Hong Kong stretches below through the glass wall, a vertical city of ambition and secrets, perfect for people looking to make money disappear. I've been in town less than 3 hours, and already I feel the weight of invisible eyes. This city doesn't like people asking questions. On the 12th floor, the hallway stretches in both directions, all identical mahogany doors with gold lettering. I locate the file room exactly where my contact said it would be. The electronic lock yields to the security card I was provided, another expense that will appear on Ethan Miller's invoice, assuming I live long enough to submit it. The file room smells of paper and toner, illuminated by fluorescent lights that make everything look slightly unreal. Rows of cabinets line the walls, and 3 computer terminals sit on a central island. According to my intel, the Zhang Miller documents should be in preparation for a meeting tomorrow, something about jurisdictional transfers and marital asset division. I move quickly, scanning drawer labels until I find one marked Active International ZID. My fingers rifle through folders, finding Zhang V near the back. The file is thick, divided into sections with colored tabs. I pull it out, heart quickening as I realize what I'm holding. The blueprint for a sophisticated financial trap. The first section contains what appears to be standard divorce paperwork, except Julia Miller isn't divorcing Ethan. She's divorcing a fictional version of him, one who's agreed to transfer all crypto assets to her for security reasons. The paperwork looks authentic down to the notary stamps and court filing numbers. Someone's gone to considerable expense creating forgeries that would pass casual inspection. I pull out my phone and start photographing pages, moving methodically through sections labeled Asset Inventory, Transfer Protocols, and Jurisdictional Considerations. The picture becomes clearer with each document. They're creating a paper trail to justify massive transfers from Ethan's accounts. Transfers that will look voluntary to outsiders but will actually be theft. The technical implementation section confirms my suspicions. Detailed notes outline a plan to access Ethan's cold storage wallets using credentials Julia has been collecting. There are references to compromised backup codes and password recovery vulnerabilities. They've been systematically probing his security for months. A document titled Timeline makes my stomach tighten. They're moving in 3 days. Once the assets transfer through exchanges in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Jakarta, they'll be effectively untraceable, converted to privacy coins and physical assets held by shell companies in jurisdictions that don't cooperate with U.S. authorities. The final page is the most damning, a handwritten note in what I assume is Vincent's elegant script. Confirmed J has master key access. E, still unaware, moving forward per schedule. Below that, in different handwriting, 50 May minimum target. Remaining accessible assets TBD based on primary success. $50 million. Not just a divorce, a financial execution. I'm so absorbed in the documents that I almost miss the subtle change in the room's atmosphere, a shift in air pressure as the door opens, the feeling of being watched. My hands go numb around the folder, but I feel a warmth in my chest, an uncomfortable heat that I recognize as adrenaline, my body preparing for trouble before my mind has processed the threat. The filing system can be quite confusing for new staff, says a voice behind me, cultured, amused, and unmistakably dangerous. Perhaps I can help you find what you're looking for. I turn slowly, keeping my expression neutral. Vincent Zhang stands in the doorway, immaculate in a charcoal suit that probably costs more than my car. His smile is practiced, professional, the kind that never reaches the eyes. "Thank you, sir," I say, adopting a deferential tone, hoping my disguise holds. "Mr. Lee sent me to collect the financial disclosure documents for tomorrow's meeting." Vincent steps into the room, closing the door behind him with a soft click that sounds unnervingly final. "Did he? How strange. Mr. Lee left for Singapore this morning." He moves closer, each step deliberate. "Which means either you're confused or you're lying. I suspect the latter, Mr. Hunt. My cover is blown, but I maintain the act for pride, if nothing else." "Sir, there must be some mistake." "No mistakes." Vincent's smile tightens. "We've been watching you since Singapore. Did you really think we wouldn't notice you following Julia? That we wouldn't run facial recognition after your little breakfast chat?" He gestures to the folder in my hands. "Find anything interesting in there?" I consider my options. The door is behind Vincent. The windows are sealed. My gun is in my hotel room. Useless. I opt for brazening it out. "Just confirming what my client already suspected. Fraud, theft, conspiracy. Impressive portfolio you're building." Vincent laughs softly. "Such dramatic terms for what's essentially a business transaction. Your client built his fortune taking risks with other people's money. Now he'll experience the other side of that equation. Is that how Julia sees it too? Just business? Something flickers across Vincent's face. Possessiveness, perhaps, or irritation at the mention of his partner. Julia understands value. Ethan never truly did. Not her value, anyway. He extends his hand. I'll take those documents now. I consider refusing, but survival instinct overrides professional pride. I hand over the folder, watching as Vincent tucks it under his arm without checking the contents. He already knows what's in there. This was never about the documents. It was about sending a message. You seem like a practical man, Mr. Hunt, Vincent says, his tone conversational, as if we're discussing the weather rather than a multi-million-dollar theft. So let me offer some practical advice. Get out of Asia while you still can. Is that a threat? His smile returns, genuine this time in its malice. Consider it a professional courtesy. What happens in 3 days is inevitable. If you interfere, what happens to you will be equally inevitable and considerably less pleasant. He opens the door, gesturing for me to precede him. I'll have someone escort you out, for security purposes, of course. As I walk past him, Vincent leans in slightly, his voice dropping to a murmur. Some advice. When you report to Ethan, remind him that he taught Julia everything she knows about protection and vulnerability. Everything. In the elevator down, flanked by a security guard whose suit doesn't quite hide the bulge of a shoulder holster, I process what just happened. My cover is blown. Vincent knows who I am and why I'm here, but he let me walk out, which means he's confident. Too confident. People that sure of themselves make mistakes. Outside, Hong Kong's midday heat hits me like a physical blow after the artificial chill of the office. I loosen my fake tie and head into the crowd, already planning my next move. Vincent thinks he's won this round, but he doesn't know what I've learned, or that the photos I took were automatically uploading to encrypted cloud storage even as we spoke. The game has changed, but it's far from over. And now I know exactly what they're planning, down to the day. The question is whether that knowledge will be enough to stop them. Steam rises from my bowl of beef noodle soup, carrying the scent of star anise and secrets. The shop is wedged between a fortune teller and a place that repairs electronics. Nobody makes any more. Its entrance barely visible in the narrow Kowloon alley where neon signs battle the darkness and lose. I've chosen the corner table, back to the wall, watching the handful of late-night customers through the ghostly veil of kitchen vapor. Nobody looks at anyone directly here. It's one of the rules that keeps Hong Kong's underground economy functioning, along with cash only, and no questions about bloodstains. The old man who enters doesn't so much walk as drift, a human fog bank in a faded blue jacket. He wears thick glasses held together with tape at one hinge and a flat cap pulled low. He orders without speaking, just a nod to the owner who acknowledges him with an equally silent chin dip. The entire transaction takes 3 seconds and contains volumes. When he sits across from me, the scent of tobacco and tiger balm replaces the soup steam. It's been 5 years since I last saw Lao Bai, but time moves differently for men like him. He could be 60 or 80, his face mapped with the geography of 1,000 secrets kept and sold. "Hunt?" he says, my name barely a whisper. "Long time. You look older." "You don't," I lie, the traditional opening to our dance. His smile reveals teeth stained by decades of strong tea. "Still telling stories for money? Still finding truth for people who can afford it," I correct him, sliding a red envelope across the table. He takes it without looking, the money disappearing somewhere into his jacket. A bowl of noodles arrives before him. He picks up chopsticks with fingers that tremble slightly. Not age, I realize, but nervousness. Lao Bai has survived this long by developing instincts sharper than a street cat's. If he's nervous, I should be terrified. Tell me about Vincent Zhang, I say, keeping my voice low. Lao Bai slurps a noodle, eyes darting to the door, then back to me. Dangerous question about a dangerous man. That's why I'm paying dangerous money. Another noodle disappears. Not what he seems. Clean suit, dirty hands. Began in real estate, moved to finance. Now he specializes in moving money that doesn't want to be found. Crypto? Lao Bai no Ds. Part of a syndicate. They call themselves the New Asian Prosperity Group. Very modern, very sophisticated. They take money from people who have legal problems, corrupt officials, drug operations, sometimes divorce cases, and wash it through digital currencies. How big? Billions, maybe. They have people at every level, exchange operators, regulators, lawyers. They create elaborate structures, trusts, shell companies, smart contracts. By the time they're done, the original owner can't be connected to the assets. I take a sip of lukewarm tea, digesting this. And Zhang? Where does he fit? Architect. Lao Bai taps his temple. The mind. He designs the structures, creates the legal fiction. Some say he was educated at Harvard Business School but was expelled for cheating. Others say he worked for Chinese intelligence before going private. He leans forward. All agree he never works alone. Always has a partner on the inside. Julia Miller. Lao Bai's eyebrows rise slightly. The American woman? Yes, not his first partner like this. There was another 2 years ago, a Norwegian banker's wife. They took 20 million euros. His voice drops further. The banker committed suicide when he discovered the theft. The information settles like a stone in my stomach. This isn't just about money. It's potentially about Ethan's life. Did Zhang face consequences? Lao Bai's laugh is dry as autumn leaves. Officially, there was no connection. Unofficially, he draws a finger across his throat, then points upward. He paid high-level protection. Very high. As he speaks, I notice a woman enter the shop. She wears a red jacket that's too warm for the season and keeps one hand in her pocket. She takes a seat near the door, not ordering. My internal alarm bells begin to ring. Tell me about their methods, I press, eyes tracking another new arrival. A young man with a buzz cut who sits at the counter, angled to watch the room in the cloudy mirror behind the cook. Lao Bai hesitates, then continues in a lower voice. They create false documentation, legal papers, court orders, authorization letters, good enough to convince financial institutions to release funds. By the time anyone realizes they're forgeries, the money is gone, I finish, watching as a third person enters, older, heavy-set, sitting directly in my line to the exit. The pattern is unmistakable, like smoke, like it was never there. Lao Bai notices my attention wandering and turns slightly, spotting the newcomers. His face doesn't change, but his hands go still. You were followed. So it seems. His eyes meet mine, apologetic. I did not betray you, Hunt. I know, I say, and I do. Lao Bai survives by playing both sides, but he has his own code. They were already watching. Something in his expression shifts, a softening. You take this personally. Why risk so much for a rich man's money? The question triggers something, a door I usually keep locked. Suddenly, I'm not in Hong Kong anymore, but in Phoenix, 7 years ago, standing in my own bedroom doorway, staring at rumpled sheets and my then-wife's apologetic face. I can explain, she'd said, clutching the blanket to her chest while her lover, my partner on the force, scrambled for his clothes. It's not what you think, but it was exactly what I thought. The betrayal wasn't just the affair, it was the elaborate deception around it. The lies, the gaslighting, the manipulation. 6 months of being told I was paranoid, suspicious, untrusting, while they laughed behind my back. It wasn't just sex, it was calculated cruelty disguised as passion. They'd stolen more than my marriage. They'd stolen my belief in my own perceptions. By the time I caught them, I was half convinced I was losing my mind. The psychological damage lasted far longer than the heartbreak. "Riley," Laobai's voice pulls me back to the present. "We need to move, now." I blink, reality snapping back into focus. The woman in the red jacket is speaking into her phone. The man at the counter has shifted, one hand beneath his jacket. "The kitchen," I say quietly. "Is the back exit still there?" Laobai gives an almost imperceptible nod. "Behind the refrigerator, not obvious. When I stand, create a distraction. Something big, like old times." The ghost of a smile crosses his lips. "Good luck, Hunt. Don't come back to Hong Kong after tonight." I leave money on the table, enough to cover the soup and the inevitable damage. My muscles tense, ready. When I stand, everything happens at once. Laobai shouts, accusing the cook of poisoning him. He falls, taking the table with him in a crash of porcelain and chopsticks. Everyone turns toward the commotion, everyone except the 3 who came for me. They move with practiced coordination, the woman blocking the front entrance, the others converging on my position. I'm already moving, vaulting the counter in a single motion that sends the cashier scrambling backward. The buzz-cut man reaches for me, his jacket opening to reveal a shoulder holster. I grab a pot of boiling broth from the stove and fling it backward without looking. His scream tells me I've bought seconds, not minutes. The kitchen is narrow, slick with grease and steam. The cook flattens himself against a wall as I barrel past, heading for the ancient refrigerator that conceals the exit. Behind me, there's shouting in Cantonese, the crash of overturned equipment. A shot rings out, suppressed, a muffled cough rather than a bang, and something whines past my ear, embedding itself in the wooden doorframe ahead. I shove the refrigerator aside just enough to squeeze through, emerging into an alley even narrower than the one in front. The air smells of rotting vegetables and fear, mine sharp as copper on my tongue. I run, taking random turns through the maze of Kowloon's back streets, where centuries of unplanned construction have created a labyrinth that even locals get lost in. After 10 minutes of hard running, I slow to a walk, blending with late-night stragglers. My heart hammers against my ribs, keeping time with a single thought. They tried to kill me, not scare me, not warn me, eliminate me. Vincent Zhang isn't just confident, he's desperate. And desperate men with resources are the most dangerous kind. I duck into a 24-hour internet cafe, take a seat in the back corner, and pull out my phone. The photos from the law office are safe in cloud storage. I have proof of the plan, knowledge of the syndicate, and now personal experience of how far they'll go to protect both. Time to bring this information to the one person who might be able to use it, Ethan Miller. If he's half as smart as his wife thinks he isn't, he'll already be preparing a counter-move. The question is whether I'll reach him before Zhang's people find me again. I book a flight to Singapore departing in 3 hours, then delete the confirmation email immediately after. In this game, digital trails are as dangerous as physical ones, and I've left too many of both already. As I slip back into the neon-washed street, the rain begins, a fitting curtain call for my last night in Hong Kong, at least for this lifetime. The lobby of Lim & Associates International Law looks like it was designed by someone who thinks money should whisper, not shout. Understated teak paneling, discreet recessed lighting, and a receptionist whose perfectly pressed silk blouse probably costs more than my entire wardrobe. I bypass her with a confidence I don't feel, my rumpled suit and day-old stubble marking me as someone who doesn't belong in this temple of wealth management. 24 hours without sleep has left me running on fumes and paranoia, the faces of my Hong Kong attackers still flashing behind my eyelids whenever I blink. "Sir, you need an appointment," the receptionist calls after me, her voice like silk wrapped around steel. "Sir!" I keep walking, following the directions texted to me an hour ago. 3rd floor, East Wing, Conference Room B. Behind me, I hear her picking up the phone, probably calling security. I have maybe 2 minutes before men with earpieces and no necks arrive to escort me out. The elevator opens on the 3rd floor, revealing a hallway of closed doors, each labeled in English and Mandarin. My reflection in the polished wood looks worse than I thought. There's dried blood on my collar from where glass shattered too close during my Hong Kong escape, and my left eye is developing a bruise where I connected with someone's elbow. I find conference room B and push through the door without knocking. Inside, a woman in a severe charcoal suit looks up from a stack of documents, her expression shifting from surprise to recognition to assessment in the space of a second. "Mr. Hunt, I presume," she says, her accent clipped and precise. "You're early and somewhat damaged." "Where's Miller?" I demand, not bothering with pleasantries. "I need to see him now. There's been a development." She studies me with the detached interest of an entomologist examining a particularly unpromising specimen. "Mr. Miller is finishing a call. He'll be with you shortly." She gestures to a chair. "Perhaps you'd like some coffee or first aid?" Before I can answer, the inner door opens and Ethan Miller emerges. He looks different from when I last saw him in San Francisco, more relaxed, almost amused. His casual button-down and jeans seem out of place in this fortress of formality. "Riley," he says, as if we're old friends meeting for lunch. "You look like hell. Come on in." I follow him into a smaller office, my urgency building. "We need to talk. Your wife is planning to steal approximately $50 million from my crypto wallets using forged divorce documents and compromised security codes," he finishes, dropping into a leather chair. "With her lover, Vincent Zhang, who runs a money laundering operation specializing in digital assets." "Yes, I know." I stare at him, momentarily speechless. "You know? Sit before you fall down," he suggests, gesturing to the chair opposite. "Mei Ling, could we get some coffee in here? And maybe a first aid kit for Mr. Hunt?" The lawyer nods and withdraws, closing the door silently behind her. "How long have you known?" I ask, sinking into the chair, the adrenaline that's kept me moving since Hong Kong beginning to ebb. "About their affair? 6 months? About the theft plan? About 3 weeks. Ethan's calm is unnerving. "I hired you because I needed confirmation from someone with no connection to either of us, and because I needed Julia to see you following her. You used me as a distraction." The realization lands like a punch. "While they were watching me?" "Oh, I was watching them," he confirms with a slight smile. "My background isn't just in cryptocurrency trading, Riley. Before that, I was in security systems, specifically breach testing." The lawyer returns with coffee and a small medical kit, then withdraws again. I take the coffee gratefully, the first sip burning away some of the fog in my brain. "You're not surprised," I say, "or angry?" "I was both, 3 weeks ago." Ethan leans forward, his expression hardening slightly. "But emotions make for poor strategy. Once I understood what they were planning, I started planning too. The ambush in Hong Kong wasn't my doing," he says firmly. "That was Vincent. He's impulsive when threatened. It's why he'll fail." He reaches for a laptop on the desk beside him. "I'm sorry you were put at risk. It wasn't part of my calculation." I dab at the cut on my neck with an antiseptic wipe from the kit, wincing. "So, what is your calculation exactly? You're just going to let them steal $50 million? Ethan's smile returns, with an edge that wasn't there before. No, I'm going to let them think they're stealing $50 million. He turns the laptop toward me, showing a screen filled with transaction data and wallet addresses. This is a honeypot wallet I created last week. It looks legitimate. Same transaction patterns as my real holdings, same security protocols, even the same types of tokens. I lean closer, studying the screen. The technical details are beyond me, but I understand the concept. You're setting them up. The wallet contains tokens that appear valuable according to all the standard metrics. Transaction history, liquidity pairs, market cap, everything checks out. But they're worthless. Just code with no actual backing or function. By the time they realize that, the blockchain will have recorded their theft attempt, complete with all the wallet addresses they're using to launder the funds. Evidence, I murmur. Immutable, public, and traceable, Ethan confirms. The perfect trap for people who think they understand the system better than its creator. Something about his tone makes me look up sharply. There's a satisfaction in his eyes that borders on cruelty, a glimpse of something beneath the calm, rational exterior. What happens when they try to sell the tokens and discover they're worthless? Ethan shrugs. Best case? They panic, make mistakes, leave even more evidence. Worst case? They come after me directly, at which point I have everything I need for criminal charges across multiple jurisdictions. You're using your wife as bait to catch Zhang, I realize. That's why you're in Singapore instead of San Francisco. You want to be here when it all falls apart. I'm in Singapore because this is where the end game plays out, he corrects. And Julia isn't bait. She's a willing participant in attempted theft and fraud. Our fingers brush as he takes back the laptop, and I feel a spark. Static from the dry air, but it jolts me nonetheless. There's something Ethan isn't telling me, some piece of the puzzle still hidden. When does this happen? I ask. Today. He glances at his watch. In approximately 6 hours, Julia will attempt to access what she thinks is my master wallet. The system will recognize her credentials, which I altered to appear valid while flagging the breach, and she'll initiate the transfers. He closes the laptop. By midnight, she'll think she's $50 million richer. By tomorrow morning, she'll realize she's holding worthless code and facing criminal charges. And your real assets? Secured in ways neither of them could possibly access. His smile is cold now. I learned long ago not to keep anything valuable where it could be easily taken. The implications of that statement hang in the air between us. I get the distinct impression he's not just talking about cryptocurrency. Ethan reaches for his phone, types something quickly, then shows me the screen. It's a message to Julia. If you want it, come and get it. Master wallet access codes unchanged since last audit. Don't spend it all in one place. You're taunting her, I say. I'm ensuring she acts today, not tomorrow. He sends the message, then pockets the phone. Predictability is a weakness, Riley, one that Julia and Vincent both share. They think they're being clever, but they're following a script I've already read. He stands, signaling our meeting is ending. Ms. Lim will provide you with secure accommodation until this concludes. I suggest you rest. You've more than earned your fee. I rise, too, still uneasy despite his confidence. What if something goes wrong? What if they've anticipated your trap? For just a moment, something flickers behind Ethan's eyes. Doubt, perhaps, or something darker. Then I have contingencies for my contingencies. This isn't my first time protecting what's mine. As I follow him back to the main conference room, I can't shake the feeling that I'm still missing something crucial. Ethan's plan is elegant, even brilliant, but there's an undertone to his confidence that bothers me. Not arrogance, something more personal, more vengeful. One last thing, I say as we reach the door. When this is over, what happens to Julia? Ethan pauses, hand on the doorknob. That depends on her next move. The smart play would be to disappear, admit defeat. But Julia has never been good at losing. He opens the door. Whatever happens, it'll be her choice, not mine. But as he says it, I catch something in his expression, a micro-expression of anticipation, almost hunger. He's not just setting a trap. He's looking forward to it being sprung. This isn't just about money or betrayal for him. It's about something deeper, more primal. As I leave with the lawyer to be shown to my secure accommodation, I can't help feeling that this elaborate financial chess game is about to become something much more dangerous. The trap is ready to spring, but I'm no longer certain who's truly being trapped. Julia, Vincent, Ethan, or all of them, caught in a web of their own making. And somewhere in the machinery of this perfect revenge, I've become a moving part rather than an observer. The question is whether any of us will walk away intact when the gears finally stop turning. The champagne fizzes like static electricity as Julia pours it into crystal flutes, her laughter high and brittle against the midnight skyline of Jakarta. 50 floors up, the city spreads below us like a fortune we've already spent, all twinkling promise and electric potential. The penthouse suite smells of success, new leather, hotel soap, and the metallic tang of ambition fulfilled. $50 million, Julia says, raising her glass toward Vincent. Her silk robe slips slightly off one shoulder, revealing skin flushed with victory and Dom Perignon. A toast to digital liberation. Vincent touches his glass to hers with surgical precision. His eyes never leave the screen of his laptop, where numbers scroll in endless green confirmation. He's been this way for hours, watchful, tense, checking and rechecking wallet addresses and confirmation codes. I might mistake it for professional thoroughness if I didn't know better. Vincent Zhang doesn't do nervous. "Your husband never saw it coming," he says, his smile tight at the edges. "The master of cryptocurrency, outsmarted by his trophy wife." Julia's expression flickers, pride tangled with something sharper. "I was never his trophy." "No," Vincent agrees, closing his laptop with a soft click. "You were his blind spot, and now you're $50 million richer." He stands, smoothing invisible wrinkles from his tailored shirt. "The tokens will need another 12 hours to clear the Indonesian exchange. Then we move them through the Singapore Shell Corporation." Julia kicks off her heels, curling bare feet beneath her on the white leather sofa. She looks softer somehow, younger, now that it's done. The predatory focus that drove her through months of careful planning has dissolved into something like relief. "I still can't believe how easy it was," she says, refilling her glass. "All those layers of security, and all I needed was his backup recovery phrase. The man keeps his passwords in a physical notebook, Vincent. In 2023. Vincent's laugh doesn't reach his eyes. He moves to the window, staring out at the Jakarta skyline as if searching for surveillance drones. Something in his posture sets off a warning bell in my head. A tightness in his shoulders I've seen before in men preparing to run. "The digital world creates a false sense of security," he says, his back to Julia. "People think code protects them, but it's always the human element that fails." He checks his watch, a discreet, expensive movement. "I need to make a call. Some final arrangements for our transfer tomorrow." Julia stretches, cat-like and content. "Don't be long. We should celebrate properly." Her voice drops an octave, thick with promise and plans. After all, we have the rest of our lives to enjoy being rich. Vincent pauses at the bedroom door, something complicated crossing his face. Regret, perhaps, or simple calculation. Absolutely, the rest of our lives. The bedroom door closes with a soft click that somehow sounds final. Julia doesn't notice, too busy opening an investment app on her tablet, scrolling through potential properties in non-extradition countries. The future unfolds before her in square footage and ocean views, a life rebuilt from the ashes of her marriage. 20 minutes pass before she notices Vincent hasn't returned. 30 before she knocks on the bedroom door, champagne glass still in hand. The room is empty, the bathroom dark. His suitcase is gone, along with the laptop that contained their shared access codes. "Vincent?" Her voice echoes against marble and glass, already knowing there won't be an answer. Her phone pings with a notification, a banking alert. Heart suddenly hammering, she opens the app they established for their operational funds. The account shows a balance of 0, with a single transaction time-stamped 10 minutes ago. All their liquid capital, the money they'd set aside for expenses while waiting for the crypto to clear, transferred to an account she doesn't recognize. "No," she whispers, fingers suddenly clumsy as she navigates to their secondary account. 0. Emergency fund? 0. The champagne glass slips from her hand, shattering against the hardwood floor in a spray of crystal and expensive bubbles. Julia doesn't notice, already frantically logging into the crypto wallet where they'd transferred Ethan's fortune. The wallet shows a balance of 50,000 tokens, exactly as planned. Her breathing steadies momentarily. At least he didn't get that. But something feels wrong. The token name doesn't match what she expected. Instead of the familiar cryptocurrencies, these are labeled e-trust, something she's never heard of. With trembling fingers, she opens a crypto exchange app, searching for the token. Nothing. She tries another exchange, then another. The token doesn't exist on any major platform. A cold weight settles in her stomach as she opens a blockchain explorer and enters the token contract address. The page loads, revealing the truth in cold, digital clarity. The tokens were created 1 week ago. They have no trading history, no liquidity, no market cap. They are, essentially, worthless. Just lines of code with no actual value created specifically for this transaction. Julia's legs give out and she sinks to the floor amid broken crystal. Her hands are numb, but she feels a warmth in her chest, an uncomfortable heat that she recognizes as pure distilled panic. She's been conned, not just by Vincent, who took their operational cash, but by Ethan, who somehow knew, who prepared, who let her steal worthless tokens while making her think she'd won. She scrambles for her phone, calls Vincent. The number has been disconnected. Of course it has. She tries another number she has for him. Same result. The man has vanished as completely as her future. The penthouse suddenly feels cavernous, every surface reflecting her failure back at her. The champagne seeps into the imported hardwood, leaving sticky evidence of premature celebration. Outside, Jakarta continues its midnight dance, indifferent to her collapse. Julia forces herself to her feet, moving on autopilot to her laptop. Perhaps there's a mistake. Perhaps the tokens are legitimate, just new, undiscovered. She searches financial forums, developer channels, anything that might mention e-trust tokens. The only reference she finds is a newly created thread on a blockchain security forum. Honeypot Wallet successfully traces theft attempt. Case study in digital forensics. The username is simply EM, Ethan Miller, her husband, her mark, the man she thought she was ruining. The full weight of what has happened crashes down on her. The tokens are worthless. The cash is gone. Vincent has abandoned her. And somewhere in Singapore, Ethan is watching, tracking, recording every desperate move she makes as she realizes she's lost everything. She opens her wallet, counting the physical cash. Barely enough for 2 days in this luxury hotel. Her credit cards are linked to accounts Ethan will be monitoring. The passport she traveled on is in her real name, traceable. She is, in every sense that matters, trapped. The irony doesn't escape her. She who planned to disappear with millions is now scrambling to disappear with nothing. The woman who thought herself clever enough to con a tech genius has been conned by both men in her operation. Julia slides to the floor, back against the cold glass that separates her from a 50-story drop. Outside, the Jakarta skyline sparkles with indifferent beauty, lights blinking like the cursor on a blank screen, waiting for her to write her next move. But for the first time since this began, Julia Miller has no plan, no escape route, no future beyond the rapidly approaching moment when the hotel will require payment for this palace built on vanished promises. The champagne dries tacky against her bare feet, a perfect metaphor for everything sweet turned sour. In the silent apartment, her breathing sounds too loud, the only proof she still exists in a world where everything else has disappeared. Her lover, her money, her revenge, her escape. All gone like code deleted with a single keystroke. Dawn breaks over Jakarta like a cracked egg. Yolk-yellow light bleeding through cloud-gray pollution. The market heaves with life. Vendors shouting, motorbikes weaving, the air thick with frying oil and desperation. I follow Lina Surya's compact figure as she navigates this human current with practiced ease, occasionally glancing back to ensure I haven't been swept away. 3 days since Julia Miller's world collapsed, and we're betting she's gone to ground here, where cash-only transactions and no questions asked make it perfect for someone running from digital ghosts. People disappear here every day, Lina says, pausing to let me catch up. She wears practical clothes, dark jeans, a loose shirt, and a hijab in muted blue. Nothing that would draw attention in this crush of humanity. But rich Americans? They shine like broken glass in sunlight. I nod, sweat already soaking through my shirt despite the early hour. Ethan's message came yesterday. Julia had abandoned the penthouse, disappeared from digital surveillance, withdrawn the last of her personal cash from an ATM near this market. He wanted me to find her, not for revenge, he insisted, but to ensure she wasn't planning another attack on his systems. I'm not sure I believe him, but the additional fee he offered made the question academic. Your friend says she's staying in worker housing? Lina asks, seamlessly switching directions to avoid a cart piled with durians. That's the tip. Former hotel worker recognized her checking into a boarding house near the eastern section, paying triple rate for no questions. Lina makes a sound, half laugh, half sigh. Triple rate still only buys you a concrete floor and shared toilet in those places. She glances at me, something like sympathy in her sharp eyes. Hard fall for someone used to penthouses. We push deeper into the market, where tourists never venture and even local police travel in pairs. The buildings crowd together here, creating narrow channels where sunlight rarely reaches. Laundry hangs like surrender flags from rusted balconies. Children with ancient eyes watch us pass, calculating our worth, our threat level. There! Lina nods toward a 5-story concrete building wedged between a phone repair shop and a place selling unidentifiable parts of unidentifiable animals. Many migrant workers stay there. Malaysians, Filipinos. Management doesn't check papers if you pay cash. The entrance is a narrow doorway leading to a darker, narrow staircase. Lina exchanges rapid-fire Bahasa with a teenager sitting on a plastic chair. Money changes hands. And we're directed to the 4th floor, 3rd door. He says a foreign woman arrived 3 days ago, Lina translates as we climb stairs that smell of mildew and instant noodles. Pays for meals to be brought up. Doesn't come down. She's hiding, I say. Or waiting, Lina counters. Desperate people are rarely still for long. The 4th floor hallway is lit by a single bulb that flickers like a dying firefly. Doors line both sides, some open to reveal rooms crowded with bedrolls and cooking equipment, entire families living in spaces the size of American closets. The third door is closed, a torn paper sign taped across it with Indonesian script. Says, "Do not disturb." Lena translates unnecessarily. I knock anyway. No response. Knock again. Harder. "Julia Miller," I call through the thin door. "It's Riley Hunt." Silence, then a rustle of movement. The door opens just enough to reveal a sliver of face, one bloodshot eye, a strand of unwashed hair, pale skin. "Go away." Her voice is rough, as if she hasn't used it in days. "We need to talk. I have nothing to say to Ethan's attack dog." "I'm not here to attack," I say, though we both know that's not entirely true. 5 minutes, then you'll never see me again. The door opens wider, revealing Julia Miller in full ruin. She wears a tank top stained with sweat and what might be instant coffee, loose cotton pants frayed at the hems. Her hair hangs limp, her face stripped of makeup and pretense. She looks smaller somehow, the designer predator reduced to prey. 5 minutes, she agrees, stepping back to let us enter. The room is perhaps 10 feet square, with a thin mattress on the floor, a plastic chair, and a window covered with newspaper. A single bulb dangles from the ceiling, casting harsh light over the scene. Julia's designer suitcase sits open in one corner, its contents spilling out like evidence at a crime scene. The air smells of instant noodles and stale dreams. "Your new place lacks the view of your penthouse," I observe. "Cut the crap," Julia snaps, dropping onto the mattress. "Did Ethan send you to gloat? To make sure I'm properly destroyed before he finishes the job?" Lena positions herself near the door, silent but watchful. I take the room's only chair, studying Julia with professional detachment. 3 days ago, this woman was celebrating stealing $50 million. Now she's hiding in a migrant worker hostel with what looks like less than $100 to her name. "Ethan wants to know if you're planning anything else," I say. "Any more attempts on his accounts? Any other schemes with Vincent?" Julia's laugh is a broken thing, all sharp edges and no humor. "Vincent, of course." She rubs her face with hands that tremble slightly. "Vincent is gone. Took our operational cash, disappeared, probably halfway to Hong Kong by now." She looks up, her eyes hard, despite the dark circles beneath them. "As for schemes, I have nothing left to scheme with. Ethan made sure of that." "The tokens were fake," I say, though it's not a question. Worthless code." Julia picks at a loose thread on her pants. "Created just for me to steal. A perfect trap." Something like grudging respect crosses her face. "I have to give him credit. It was beautifully done." "You could have destroyed him," I point out, "not just financially." That was the point. Her voice drops, becoming more honest than I've heard it. "He built his identity around being the smartest person in the room. I wanted him to know how it feels when someone you trust makes you question everything. The admission hangs in the stale air between us. I've heard similar sentiments from hundreds of divorcing spouses over the years, but rarely expressed with such raw honesty. "And now?" I ask. Julia gestures around the squalid room. "And now I hide until I figure out my next move. My accounts are frozen. Ethan's doing, I assume. My passport is flagged at every airport in Southeast Asia. I have about $80 left." She meets my gaze directly. "I'd say he won, wouldn't you?" There's something oddly dignified about her defeat. No tears, no histrionics, just a clear-eyed assessment of her situation. In another life, she might have made an excellent detective. "What will you do?" I ask, genuinely curious. She shrugs, the movement making her collarbones stand out against her skin. She's lost weight in these few days, her designer clothes now hanging loose on her frame. "Start over." I did it once before, when I reinvented myself as the perfect tech wife. I can do it again. Without Vincent? Her expression hardens. Men like Vincent and Ethan, they think women like me need them, that we're just decorative accessories to their genius. She leans forward, intensity momentarily eclipsing her exhaustion. I got close enough to take $50 million from one of the most security-conscious men in tech. Next time, I won't make the same mistakes. Next time, I repeat, studying her. You're still thinking about the next con. I'm thinking about survival, she corrects. Isn't that what we're all doing? The question lingers as I stand to leave. Lena moves toward the door, clearly ready to be gone from this place of concentrated misfortune. Ethan wanted me to give you a message, I say, reaching into my pocket. I pull out an envelope. Not my idea, but I'm being paid to deliver it. Julia takes it warily, as if it might explode. Inside is a plane ticket to Arizona and a bank card. What is this? One-way economy ticket to your hometown. The card has $5,000, enough to get established somewhere new. His final offer. She stares at the ticket, something complicated happening behind her eyes. And what does he want in return? A signed confession? Public humiliation? Nothing, just your absence from his life. Julia's fingers close around the ticket, crinkling its edges. Tell him. She trails off, searching for words that won't come. Just tell him I got the message. As Lena and I step back into the hallway, Julia remains seated on her thin mattress, the ticket clutched in her hand like a life preserver thrown to someone who's already decided to drown. In that moment, she reminds me of countless other cases I've worked, people who reached too far, fell too hard, and found themselves wondering how solid ground turned to quicksand beneath their feet. Sad woman, Lena comments as we descend the stairs. But dangerous, I think. Even now, I nod, unable to shake the image of Julia in that bare room, stripped of everything except her determination to survive. Ethan may think he's closing this chapter, but something tells me Julia Miller's story is far from over. The market swallows us again, its noise and motion a welcome contrast to the stillness of defeat we leave behind. Somewhere above us, a woman who planned to vanish with millions now plans her next disappearing act with nothing but a charity ticket and the sharp lessons of failure. I can't decide if that makes her more or less dangerous than before. Changji Airport gleams with artificial perfection, all polished floors and climate-controlled precision, a temple to frictionless global movement. I watch raindrops race down the massive windows, merging and splitting like digital assets changing hands across invisible blockchains. My flight to San Francisco boards in an hour, carrying me away from this strange case with its digital heists and analog betrayals. My phone vibrates with an incoming message. Ethan Miller's name appearing on the screen like a final puzzle piece clicking into place. The message is simple. You saved more than my money. You saved my future. Thank you. I pocket the phone without replying. The payment is already cleared, enough to cover my mortgage for 6 months and repair the leak in my bathroom ceiling. Professional courtesy doesn't require emotional closure. Still, the message lingers in my mind as I sip overpriced airport coffee and watch travelers hurry past. Each face a mask, each suitcase potentially filled with secrets. After dropping Julia's message with Ethan yesterday, I expected to fly straight home from Jakarta. Instead, he insisted I return to Singapore for a final meeting, ostensibly to collect payment and debrief, though I suspected he wanted confirmation that Julia was truly neutralized. The Ethan Miller I met in his lawyer's office seemed different from the man who first hired me. Calmer, more focused, less frantic with betrayal. She took the ticket, he said when I told him about finding Julia in that squalid room. Something flickered across his face. Not quite satisfaction, not quite relief. She did. I confirmed, though I wouldn't count on her using it. His smile was thin, knowing. I don't, but it serves its purpose either way, which is to remind her that I know exactly where she is, what she has, and what her options are. He slid a glass of water toward me. No whiskey this time, all business. Control isn't about forcing someone's hand. It's about limiting their choices until they make the one you want them to make. I didn't point out that this philosophy might explain why his marriage had failed in the first place. Instead, I asked the question that had been bothering me since I learned about his honeypot trap. Why hire me at all? You knew what they were planning. You had countermeasures in place. Ethan looked out his office window at Singapore's precise skyline. I needed someone Julia would underestimate, someone she'd see as just another middle-aged man to manipulate. Your presence made her confident, careless. He turned back to me. And I needed objective confirmation of what I already suspected. Emotions cloud judgment, even mine. Now, watching planes taxi through Singapore's eternal rain, I wonder if he was being entirely truthful. The dossier Ethan prepared on Julia was too thorough, his trap too elaborate for someone who just wanted confirmation. This wasn't about money, not really. It was about control, about winning, about making sure Julia understood exactly who had outsmarted whom. The airport's ambient noise, roller bags on tile, multilingual announcements, the hum of climate control, creates a soothing backdrop for darker thoughts. I can't help wondering what Julia will do next. The ticket to Arizona sits in her possession like Chekhov's gun, a dramatic device that may or may not be fired. Will she retreat, regroup, disappear into anonymous Middle America? Or is she already planning her next move, her next identity, her next mark? My instincts lean toward the latter. People like Julia Miller don't simply accept defeat, no matter how total it seems. They metabolize failure into fuel. If Ethan thinks he's seen the last of her, he's probably making the same mistake she made, underestimating an opponent's capacity for adaptation. A young couple argues quietly near my gate. Designer luggage, matching rings, tense postures. I watch them without watching, a professional habit. She checks her phone too often. He pretends not to notice. They perform the choreography of a relationship already fracturing along fault lines they can't yet name. I've seen it 100 times, the precursors to the kinds of cases that pay my rent. Trust eroding like coastline in a rising sea. My phone buzzes again. Not Ethan this time, but an email alert about a potential new client. Another wealthy man who suspects his wife, another digital trail to follow, another story of betrayal waiting to be documented. The work never ends because the impulses driving it never change. Technology evolves, but human nature remains constant, greedy, secretive, self-justifying. I think about Vincent Zhang, probably already working his next angle with a new partner, a new mark. I think about Julia, sitting in that bare room in Jakarta, holding a ticket she may never use. I think about Ethan, back in his glass tower, secure in his victory, but perhaps already lonely within it. Each of them believed they were the smartest player in a game only they truly understood. Each of them was wrong. The rain intensifies, blurring the plains into smeared metal ghosts. A bolt of lightning illuminates the tarmac, followed seconds later by thunder that barely penetrates the terminal's insulated windows. Nature's warning system, flash, then sound, giving those who pay attention time to prepare. In my business, the warnings are subtler. A password changed too often, a sudden interest in offshore accounts, unexplained absences with practiced explanations. I stand as my flight begins boarding, joining the line of travelers clutching phones and passports, modern talismans against uncertainty. The case is closed, the invoice paid, the principals scattered to their separate corners. Yet something nags at me, some loose thread in this tapestry of deception. Perhaps it's simply that no victory is ever as complete as Ethan believes his to be. Perhaps it's that betrayal, once experienced, creates its own momentum. My seat is by the window, offering one last view of Singapore as we take off, a perfect grid of ambition and order already fading into cloud cover and distance. I order a scotch, neat, and consider what I've learned from the Miller case. In the end, it comes down to this. In a digital world, trust is a currency, and there's always another scam waiting. The tools change: blockchain instead of bearer bonds, cryptocurrencies instead of cash, but the fundamental equation remains the same. People will always find new ways to take what isn't theirs, to betray those who trust them, to justify their actions with elaborate mythologies of deserving and revenge. My job is simply to document the aftermath, to follow the evidence where it leads, to present the truth to those who can afford to pay for it. What they do with that truth is beyond my control or concern. I learned that lesson the hard way in Phoenix, watching my badge slide across a desk for the last time. The plane banks into clouds, and Singapore disappears completely, existing now only in memory and digital records. Like Julia's scheme, like Vincent's promises, like Ethan's marriage. Just another story concluded, but not quite finished. As we climb above the storm, I close my eyes, letting the engine noise wash over me. Tomorrow there'll be another case, another deception to unravel, another truth to deliver. The only constant in this business is that nothing is quite what it seems, especially when it looks exactly like what you expected.